TJ got approved for $60,000 in business credit with Key Bank without a single hard credit pull. With that type of funding, you don't have to flinch when a client ghosts you or drags their feet on payment, or when a big project requires cash up front to buy materials. You know that you've got the money in your back pocket. So soon you'll see how TJ went from getting lowballed by two major banks to walking out of Key Bank with everything he wanted. Plus the controversial but high-level hack that made his business look irresistible to the bank, and the 5-digit code he dropped that stopped the bank manager mid-sentence and got an instant nod of respect. Oh, and before I forget, if you like business cards that you can get fully approved for without a hard credit pull, then I'll leave a link below to my no PG business card master list with 25 plus cards and counting on it. And with these cards, you never have to worry about, high credit usage taking your personal credit score, because it never even shows up there. So there's no hard credit pulls, there's no personal guarantee. And here's the big one. If your business ever struggles and you have to shut it down for some reason, you can walk away completely personally debt free. And again, if you want instant access to the No PG Business Card Master List, there's going to be a QR code on the screen, and you can hit the link below to get access for free. But back to TJ. So we've all experienced, the exact moment TJ was in. He was sitting in a quiet bank lobby, waiting to see if someone behind the desk, thinks that he's worthy of credit. And TJ was in Ohio. His personal credit was great, had a 780 FICO score and a couple of $20,000+ credit cards. But now the real question was whether Key Bank would step up and fund his business. And similar to me, TJ spends his days helping other entrepreneurs get funding that they need. He even runs a credit repair service on the side, so he knows the game. But here's the thing, knowing the playbook and actually playing the game are two totally different things when it's your own approval on the line. He had just opened a checking account with Key Bank a week earlier, tossing in the minimum of $50. And for a lot of you, I know that's pocket change, but he knew that quick play could set him up for something much bigger down the line. Now he's sitting across from a branch supervisor. Now his mind was racing. He's running through everything he practiced, the pitch deck in his head, the answers to the income and revenue questions, even the NAICS code he brought along with him. He wasn't there to hope for an approval. He came to see if all that preparation would pay off. And just so you know, he needed the capital in the first place to keep his business running and growing. A big part of what he does is helping other business owners through the credit repair and process and adding trade lines to strengthen their profiles. That takes cash up front, and without it, clients can't move forward and his business can't scale up. And here's what I see a lot of business owners doing. They start out putting, a lot of expenses on their personal cards because it feels like the easy option. And it works, until it doesn't. One big project, one slow paying client, and suddenly their utilization spikes, their score dips, and their safety net feels kind of shaky. And that's the trap TJ wanted to avoid. He wasn't looking to put any weight on his personal credit. He wanted funding that gave him breathing room on the business side only. And on paper, TJ looked like the kind of borrower any bank should bend over backwards for. That 780 FICO score, strong personal cards, no negatives, that's important, and a solid business. But that didn't mean every bank is going to see it that way. For example, when he walked into Wells Fargo, he expected at least a $20,000 line. Instead, they came back with just $12,000. And for someone with his profile, it felt like a slap in the face. The numbers didn't add up, and it left him questioning whether banks were even paying attention to the bigger picture. And listen, US Bank was even stingier to him. Despite his high credit score, they barely approved him for $3,000. $3,000. That's hardly enough for most business owners to cover a single month of expenses, let alone give them room to grow their business. And then there was Key Bank. Unlike the quick online applications most of us are used to, this one couldn't be done behind a keyboard. To go after the credit line, TJ had to physically make the trip into a branch. That meant carving out time, sitting across from a supervisor, and putting himself on the spot. He knew that he couldn't just rely on his credit score. He'd have to deliver his answers with confidence, keep them believable, and resist the urge to over-explain himself. And he really needed to come across like a business owner in control, not someone begging for a handout. And for TJ, this wasn't just about filling out forms. It was about showing up prepared, walking into that branch with his head up high and proving that he was worth betting on. Now, by the time TJ sat down at that KeyBank desk, he wasn't winging it. He had put in the work. So for days leading up to the meeting, he rehearsed his answers like an athlete running drills before game day. He didn't want to stumble over numbers or just ramble on and on when a simple, confident response would do. He even practiced his tone, his body language, and he knew that walking in with that confidence matters just as much as a credit score. If he came across nervous or overly scripted, the banker could see right through it. So instead, he focused on speaking clearly, sitting upright, and looking like someone who already belonged in the high limit approval club. And then came the detail most people always overlook. He had his NAICS code ready. So most applicants never think twice about it, but when TJ handed it over, the supervisor's eyebrows went up. Now, it was a small move, but it made him look prepared, professional, and serious about his business. And the true high level move was how he applied. So he didn't go in with a brand new entity. He used a 2-year-old shelf corporation. On paper, that business age gave him consistent credibility. And to the bank, it looked like he wasn't just another new LOC trying to see what they could get. So he technically had history, he had a track record, and he had weight behind his application. And when it came time for the numbers, TJ had them dialed in too. So for his income, he listed $14,000 a month. That's about 168K annually. For business revenue, he put down $650,000. So together, those figures showed a healthy 26% profit margin on paper. So that's still believable, definitely confident, and it's strong enough to support the approvals that he was aiming for. So when he went through the process, TJ said it felt almost identical to working with a business relationship manager. He said the supervisor was sweet and walked him through each step like they already knew him, which really made all the difference in how the application played out. Then later, after his meeting at Key Bank, the phone rang, and it was the banker on the line. TJ had to force a steady voice as the banker delivered the words that he'd been waiting for all this time. They said approved for a $20,000 business credit card and a $40,000 line of credit. Now, here's the part that should make your jaw drop. They didn't even hard pull his credit. Now, you're probably thinking the same thing that I did. You're like, wait, $60,000 in approvals and his credit report didn't even take a hit? How is that even possible? And then the call ends. His thumbs instantly tap out a text message, 20K card, 40K line. And before his partner even read it, he already was putting that new card to work. So these approvals didn't just sit in TJ's wallet collecting dust. The very moment that 20K business card hit his hands, he started paying bills, projects, and client costs. And then there's the line of credit. That's $40,000 just sitting there ready if he needed it. He didn't rush to spend it, but that really wasn't the point. The point was knowing it was there. And for a business owner, that kind of cushion changes the way that you sleep at night. It's really the difference between stressing over every slow paying client and moving forward with the confidence that you've got a safety net. So what TJ gained wasn't just money, it was peace of mind. All those hours of preparation, all that relationship building with Key Bank, all the confidence he carried into the meeting, it all paid off. The funding was just proof that he'd done it right. And the approval gave him leverage. Now, when he looks at that next opportunity, he's not wondering, if he has enough to invest. He knows that he can step up and take it. Now, I want to tell you, a few months after his big win, TJ decided to run the play again, this time with a brand new LOC. Now, on paper, his profile hadn't changed. His FICO score was still excellent. His personal car still carried big limits, and he knew exactly how to present himself. But this time, he skipped not one step, he actually skipped 2 steps. So first, he didn't open a KeyBank checking account to establish the relationship like before. And second, instead of applying with that 2-year-old shelf corp, he used a brand new entity that was only 3 to 4 months old. That's when the whole process kind of flipped. So instead of that smooth in-branch experience, KeyBank buried him in requests. They wanted tax returns, bank statements from another institution, a voided check, just extra documentation to prove things he thought were already obvious. It felt less like an approval process and more like an interrogation he wasn't even set up to pass. So at this point, TJ decided to withdraw the application for the line of credit and just go forward with the business credit card. But even then, the approval was nothing like before. So instead of a 20K card and a 40K line of credit, he walked away with only $5,000 on the credit card, which is just a fraction of the package he'd scored the first time. So without the business age and without that simple checking account relationship, the outcome was completely different. Now, I would say the beauty of TJ's story is that it's not just a one-off fluke. It's really a playbook that anyone can run if they're willing to set it up the right way. So here's how you can take the same steps that he did. So for step 1, you want to plant the seed early. Banks want to see that you're more than just an applicant passing through. They want to see that you're already a customer. That's why TJ's simple move of opening up that KeyBank checking account with just $50 a week before applying made such a huge difference. It's not about the amount per se, it's about planting a flag of saying, I'm here to build a relationship. Even a small deposit can change the way a banker views you when it's time to ask for credit. And then step two, he brought the right profile. So your personal credit is really the foundation and it needs to look solid. So keep your utilization under 10%, make sure there are no lates or negatives. And if you can, have at least a couple of personal cards with real limits. I'm talking 10 plus $1,000 each. So when a banker sees that you're already managed bigger lines responsibly, it makes it much easier for them to justify giving you more on the business side. Now, in step three, you want to nail the presentation. This is the part most people skip and never talk about. And it's where TJ stood out. He didn't walk in hoping his credit score would do all the talking. He rehearsed his answers so he wouldn't ramble on. He chose income and revenue numbers that made sense, strong enough to look healthy, but not inflated to the point of being unbelievable. And he even brought his NAICS code to the meeting, which most business owners don't even think about. That tiny detail made him look like a pro. And then there's step four, you want to apply in branch. Remember that. So yes, it's less convenient than, hitting submit on an online application, but after a line of credit, that face-to-face time matters. It gives you a chance to build trust and show confidence and let the banker see that you're more than just numbers on a screen. And that personal connection can be the difference between a $5,000 starter card and a 40K line of credit. And I'll give you this as a bonus. You can use the Shelf Corp shortcut. So business age does matter a lot. Banks see a 2-year-old company as more stable and fundable than a brand new LOC. But the catch is most owners don't want to wait that long. That's why some people use shelf corporations, which are pre-registered businesses that have been sitting untouched for years. So I would say you really have two options. One, you could wait it out. If you're in no rush, let your LLC naturally age to 2 years or more. The older your business looks, the more credibility that you'll have with the bank. And then two, you could buy time. If waiting isn't an option, consider purchasing a 2-year-old, shelf corporation. It does cost a few $1,000s, but for someone ready to go for serious funding right now, it can be the difference between getting buried in paperwork and walking out with approvals that change your business. But I would say this, before you go all in on shelf corporations, here are some red flags to watch out for. So banks can spot them. If the business has no real activity, no bank account, no tax returns, no history for real, lenders may ask tough questions and treat it like a brand new LLC anyway. And then you got to watch out for past baggage. So some shelf corporations may come with hidden issues like old debts, black marks, or previous owners that could, complicate things if you don't, do your diligence. And then you got to do some sort of cost versus payoff calculation. You usually are going to pay a few $1,000s, which makes sense only if you're ready to pursue serious funding right now. So if you're not prepared, that money can go to waste. And then there's the documentation gap. So banks often want financials or proof of operations. So having an aged entity on paper doesn't automatically solve that problem. And you got to watch out for paperwork congruency too. So your records with the Secretary of State, your business name, your addresses, and your ownership must line up perfectly across every single document. Any mismatch can raise red flags with underwriters and delay or even kill your approval. So shelf corps can work in the right hands, but they're not a magic wand. If you go this route, do your homework and make sure the entity is clean, legit, and congruent on paper. I can think of another person. It was Joseph who got approved for even more credit with Chase without paying for a shelf corp. He actually got approved for $71,000 from Chase with a 3-month-old LLC and no prior relationship with them. So definitely check out the next video right here to see how he managed to secure 2 Chase business cards in the same week and how he landed a face-to-face Zoom meeting with a Chase business relationship manager. Thank you for watching.